Hey, we're back. Hi, cats and human children say hello. All right, so we're going to talk today about paraphrasing uh, uh, your Shakespeare text. So we're going to be going through the same analysis page, the Romeo and Juliet page that we had before. Um, so have a copy of that so you can follow along. So let me start with a few notes about paraphrasing. What I mean by paraphrasing is taking a word for word um, modernization of your text, putting it in words that you're comfortable with, that you would use on a daily basis. Um, the reason we do this is because it helps you make this language your own. Because um, although most, I can't remember the exact figure, I think it's like 93, 94%, maybe even higher, of Shakespeare's words that he used are still in common use today. Um, Even though that's true, there's often a psychological hang up with the language. People just aren't comfortable with it. They just don't want to like it. And maybe you've experienced this too. So it's important to go word for word and put this in your own language. And that's what we're going to look at today. Um, yes, I know that there are a whole bunch of quote unquote pre-translated Shakespeare books. No Fear Shakespeare is one of them. That's my feeling on that. Um, especially, at least and especially for actors, because the point of paraphrasing for an actor is that it makes it your own so you can understand the character. When I've worked with students in the past and they've struggled with memorizing, maybe if they get hung up on a particular line or they can't get the wording right on this, my first question is going to be, all the time, is going to be, what does that mean? And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, they don't know. They'll say, I don't know. And that's the first reason you can't memorize something, is because you don't know what it means. So these pre-translated Shakespeare, yeah, I guess they serve a purpose somewhere out there. But it's not a shortcut, because it's not helping you learn the meaning of the line and make it your own. And that's the whole point of this paraphrasing activity. So when you're paraphrasing, I want you to go attempt for word, phrase for phrase, not idea for idea. Because, yeah, I mean, sometimes it takes 5 lines for Shakespeare to state a really pretty simple idea. So I want you to go through the thing word for word or line by line, but not idea for idea, because then that's summarizing rather than going through the paraphrase each line. Um, Use your own vocabulary, your own language, make it yours. This is not what you're going to be saying in performance. You are not doing a quote unquote modernized version of your monologue, but it's it's a step in the process. So understanding what it is that you're looking at is important, and make it your own. So that means use a dictionary. You'll have dictionary.com and thesaurus.com. So use a dictionary and a thesaurus to help you find words that you would use. Don't find a fancy word that you wouldn't use. Find one that you would use in this case. Sometimes that's slang. Um, so absolutely make it your own. Okay, so here we go. We've got Shakespeare's monologue of from Romeo and Juliet, what Romeo says. Same thing that we looked at before in our scansion video. Um, so do the scansion first, then look at this video if you're skipping ahead. Take them in order. So we're going to look at this line by line and put it into modern text. Now, I'm not going to go through and go word by word, but we're just going to go, and I have all this pre-done. So it's good if you've got your own to, you've got the space for the scansion that we already used. Sometimes when I'm doing paraphrasing, I just like to put it in the right-hand margin. So that's kind of the way I'm going to work this as best I can. All right, so our first line, but soft through what light through yonder window breaks. Yo, shut up. What's the light coming through that window? So again, I'm making it my own, and especially if I understand a little bit about Romeo, which I talked about in the last video, I'm gonna kind of talk the way a teenage boy would talk. Um, and but soft means it means just yo, shut up. It means hey, stop. Um, and that's what is that's what he's saying. And some of this you're gonna find out is not too hard. You might even struggle to find it find another way to say something that is already pretty obvious. So we're going to keep going. It is the east and Juliet is the sun. Translates, I hate that word translates, but whatever. We're going to have a cat help us here. um, so the modernized version is that must be the east horizon and Juliet is the sunrise. Rise, beautiful sunshine, and destroy the moonlight. Which is ugly and weak, mainly because she's so damn jealous. Because you're so much more beautiful than her. Don't serve her because she's so jealous. Her religious garments are ugly and weak, and something else that's hiding underneath my video, but you get the idea. And only idiots wear it. Take it off. Okay, so here I have to kind of go a little bit more into depth about what's being talked about, and I have to send my son out of the room. This is not PG. Go to your room. Close your ears. um, this is the interesting parts of homeschooling. So this portion here, let me get my little highlighter. This portion here, Romeo is evoking some imagery about the moon. Now the moon, and traditionally the votaresses or priestesses who would serve moon gods were typically virginal. So they were virgins. That was their one of the ways they served the moon goddess. And so he's evoking this whole idea that Juliet is serving this moon goddess, and he's telling her to stop serving. So not only is he telling her not to serve the moon god, but he's also, in a sense, saying, cast off your virginity. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. So only idiots remain virgins, is what he's saying. And if you've already caught on to the fact that he says cast it off, he is talking in both a metaphorical and a literal sense. It's got this nice double entendre of cast off your vestal livery or your religious garments, but also, hey, girl, get naked. He's a kinky teenager. I bet you didn't have your teachers talk about that when you were in high school studying this play. All right, moving on. So again, we're just going to kind of go line by line. This is, again, Shakespeare in his absolute finest. Oh, hey. Yeah. There we go. It's my girlfriend. It's my lover. If only she knew that already. Creepy stalker. He notices that her lips are moving, but she's not saying anything. Her eye discourses. I will answer it. She's making googly eyes with the moon, so I'll respond. Nope, never mind. She's not talking to me. Chicken. Two of the brightest stars in the sky need to talk with her, so they're asking her to her eyes. They're asking her eyes, the stars, asking her eyes to sparkle in her eye sockets until tomorrow morning. Or sorry, tomorrow night, so that the night sky comes back. Oops, what happened here? What if her eyes were in the sky and the stars were in her eye sockets? Oh, this is where Romeo gets really profound. Buckle up. Her pretty face would make the stars in her eye sockets fade the same way the sunshine overpowers a lamp. Her eyes in the sky her eyes in the sky would shine so hard that birds would get confused and start singing at night because they thought it was morning time because of her eyes. um, and then he observes, look at how she rests her face in her palm. Damn, I wish I were a glove on that hand so I could touch her face. This is what he sees. Um, so, again, I've made it my own. I've kind of modernized it a little bit. Um, and I want to just kind of pop into a couple common things you might see. Now, one of the biggest complaints or problems that I hear students talk about when they are trying to handle Shakespeare is they're like, there's all these these and thous. I don't understand what they mean. Um, thou, thee, thine, all of those are nothing more than second person pronouns. If you have any language study of Spanish, you speak Spanish, French, German, probably a whole bunch of other languages, but I don't know for sure. um, there's more than one second person pronoun. There's you, and um, sorry, still sending him away because I got another touchy thing to talk about here in a minute. um, so there's the second person pronouns of you, and in all of these other languages, there's a formal you and an informal you. Um, so the English language used to be the same way. We used to have a formal and an informal you. And believe it or not, thou was the informal and you was the formal. So we actually eliminated from our common vocabulary the informal. We are only using formal you now. Um, that's maybe interesting to note. But what's even more interesting is when you're finding your character using thou or you, just like if they were speaking Spanish or French or anything else, their choice of using thou or you, informal or formal, is important. It says something about their relationship with the person they're talking to, whether they feel that they can be informal. So you would um, see the thou, the informal, being used with um, lovers, um, close family relationships, or um, a master talking down to a servant or a king talking down to a subordinate. So when you're looking at a whole bunch of, Shakespearean insults, you'll always see like thou. I can't come up with one of my off the top of my head, but it always starts with thou because thou was that informal word choice. On the other hand, you, which is so much more comfortable for us, is the formal. We would see that between people who don't know each other very well, between, um, I would use thou with that little cat up there. We would use thou with, you, with somebody you're trying to show respect to, a master or a regent, somebody who deserves respect, a child to a parent, perhaps. Um, so that's really the only difference. And it's an important thing to note because sometimes you'll even see, you might find in your monologue that the character goes from thou to you in one monologue. That's interesting too. Why did they change? Why it's not haphazard. Why did they go from speaking formally to informally or vice versa? So it's a really interesting thing to note. It's character development. So just a couple of the versions you might see. So thou means you as the subject of the sentence. So thou knowst my daughters of a pretty age. I'll talk about this knowst in a second. But here it's just replaced with you know my daughters of a pretty age. The next option is thee. So we're replacing it for the object of the sentence. In modern English, we use you for both subject and object. So, no, Mary, I fear thee. So I am saying, no, by God, I fear you. We could talk about that word too here in a second. And finally, thine is the possessive case, so it means your. By giving liberty unto thine eyes, by giving liberty unto your eyes. is essentially all it's saying, just in the informal case. The other thing that happens is we have sometimes these weird EST or TH endings on words that we already know. For example, we know the word no, as in that um, one we just looked at up here. Yeah? We know the word no, but we have this est on the end, no est. And that's simply just like with when you're studying Spanish or French or whatever. Um, the conjugation of different pronouns is different. So while we would say you know, the conjugation for thou knowest is with the est at the end. So that's why that exists there. Now, we have this is an interesting little side. We have that little abbreviation. All we're doing is aligning that word. So instead of having two syllables, no est, we are saying just nos in one syllable. We're making it a contraction. We talked a bit again about that in the previous video, but it's just making a contraction so it's one syllable. Um, yeah, we'll get back to that. And then there's also hath and hast. So here's an example. This love that thou hast shown, this love that you have shown. Again, it's just a different conjugation. You don't have to write this stuff, so you don't have to know it in the sense of what does that word mean, which one should I use. You just have to be like, oh, hast. That's the version of have. That's all. Nothing to panic over. Finally, if I can get to it, there we go. We alluded to this earlier. You have these ohs and ahs and alas and all of these little words that may not have any meaning. I like to think of them as, again, as I said before, Shakespeare's gift to the actor. You can expand on your emotion at that point. I'm not saying you change it, but there are a lot of different ways to interpret them. One of the ways, and this is why I sent my son up to his room, is there's a meme that goes around that you can change alas to anytime you see alas in your monologue or in a play, just read it as aw shit. And that's just another way, and it kind of works actually if I have a whole list of alasses that are in Shakespeare. So that's another way to look at it. All right. If you have any questions on paraphrasing, I'm going to be asking you to paraphrase your own monologue. But if you have any questions, hit me up. You know when to catch me. All right. Bye.